Many great business leaders are awful people. That's what we're going to talk about today. How negative personality characteristics often contribute to business success, but also leave a dark shadow on family business. To do this, we'll be talking with David Werdiger, who is a family business advisor, entrepreneur, and best-selling author on wealth transition. Thank you for being with me, David.
Kim, thanks so much for inviting me, and I'm really excited about our discussion today.
So, what are some performance-enhancing vices that often help family business leaders and entrepreneurs to succeed?
First of all, I want to acknowledge Sabrina Little, who's an academic, because she came up with the term. Some people say, selfishness, pride. Okay, now they're generally considered vices. But if you're an entrepreneur, a successful business person, you couldn't get by without being selfish. You couldn't get by without some really, really strong self-belief, which for some people might say, ugh, he's an asshole. But other people will say, wow, he's got that determination to get ahead. I've started 3 businesses and all at once, not one after the other. But the fact is that came at some expense to my relationships. And I put that ahead. Now that means I was selfish. But if I wasn't selfish, would I have been able to do that? No. Think about envy, rivalry, okay? What pushes people to get ahead? Well, the fact is that we're social beings. So we don't want to be good, we want to be better than somebody else. There's another one which Sabrina describes as intransigence. It's that, never say die. I am not going to quit. I'm going to push myself beyond. If I have to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm going to do that. Now, is that a good thing? Not necessarily in regular life, but in business, it's what pushes you ahead. It's what drives you and gets you really, succeeding. So these are the sorts of things that we can call performance enhancing vices. They're the things that help business leaders and entrepreneurs succeed.
What I'm hearing is it's hard to be an effective business leader, someone who's able to balance competitiveness and the need to win with empathy and, let's say, collaboration. And we often praise intensely these aggressive and competitive traits in sports. Nike even has a bad person advertisement that celebrates successful athletes' competitive nature, and it ends with the phrase, winning isn't for everybody. So how do these vices in sports compare to those in the business world?
So Sabrina's article actually took this in a sports context. And she was speaking from her personal experience as a professional athlete. But I read it and I said, hang on, this is business too. And in the sporting world, let's look at a couple of other vices, okay? Cheating, boasting. Now, those are vices that everybody would acknowledge are bad in any context. And it was another example from that TV show about the moon counterfactual, where the astronauts are talking about how selfish they are, how their families are sitting at home worried about them, that they might never come back from the moon. And they're saying, no, I want to do this because I'm selfish. But then she says something so profound. She says it's selfish narcissists that drive the world forward. And it's true. Think about the people who broke new ground in the world, who explored. Steve Jobs, he gave us the iPhone and all these other cool things. But as a person, people say he was an asshole. But what's his legacy?
So why is all this so relevant for family businesses?
Why is it that nice guys come last, or that you need these vices to succeed? And the answer is because we're human beings. We're not robots. Nobody is either all good or all bad. We exist as people in multiple contexts. Okay, so the sports person is a sports person, a professional athlete. But they also have relationships. They have friends. They have family. And they have to say, well, in this context, I need to be the best I can be, and therefore I need to push myself. On the other hand, when I'm a friend or family member, I need to be sort of crank down those vices, perhaps. Now, if we think about that in family business, the entrepreneur might be a parent. And as a parent, They say, I need to create this business for whatever reason. But at the same time, a lot of entrepreneurs do this to provide for their family. But hang on, let's say they're very successful, but they also happen to be, in the process, an absent parent. That has consequences for their relationships and consequences for their children, because everybody has a money psychology, a money story. The entrepreneur says, I'm doing this, I'm working hard, I've been successful, so I can provide for my family and give them a good life and build something that can become a legacy. And the daughter says, Dad, where were you when I was playing sports? Where were you when I needed you to take me to school or pick me up or be there for me? And you were working till 10 o'clock at night. Her money psychology, her money story forms in those young years. And she might end up with, oh, what's money? Money means absent father. Not money is abundance mindset and I've got everything I need and I can be the best person and live the best life I can. Money is, oh, my dad wasn't there for me. So this is one of the unintended consequences of those performance enhancing vices, what they can do to the relationships and the people around us. So it's actually very, very relevant to family business, to entrepreneurs, because they don't exist in a vacuum and everything they do impacts those around them. Let's say the entrepreneur is successful and they die, okay? But they're a public person and they're very successful and they're lauded by the public for all of their material success and they're on this list and that list and this award and that award. And at their funeral, the outside world is saying, oh, wow, and they're writing obituaries, what a successful, and their family's saying, where were you, Dad, when I really wanted you? We didn't need all of this. We wanted you as a father. And so you've got this awful paradox, this mismatch of how this person is perceived in different contexts.
What is your advice for business leaders with these traits? And then also maybe for family members dealing with these individuals?
It would be wrong to say to somebody, crank it down, because they may not be able to. I think the most important thing is to start to develop an awareness of it and say, this is a part of me, and this part of me drives me to succeed and also has potentially unwanted consequences. And how can I strike that balance, that Goldilocks place, where I am a more congruent person? Take the example of, organized crime. It's Sopranos. They've got this code, business is business, but family is family. Dad, what do you do for a living? Are you well looked after? Do you have everything you need? Don't ask Dad what he does for a living. But what does that do when a person is such a different person depending on what context they're in? It rips them up inside. They are managing two different selves and trying to reconcile those selves. So the first thing to do is to acknowledge that I am this in this context and that in a different context. And what is I'll call it spillover risk between these two selves? And how does one impact the other? And it goes both directions. Can I be the best business person and the best parent? Probably not. But to what extent is being the best at one affecting my ability to be as good as I want to be in another? And can I crank one down a little bit at the expense of the other to say, hang on, I do need to set some boundaries and some minimum behaviors that I want to be as a parent, and that might limit my potential as an entrepreneur. So it all starts with that awareness, that self-awareness to say, these things exist, these are part of me. And having, a sounding board to talk about it, because here's the thing, the entrepreneur, they're going to rationalize this all day long. They're going to say, I'm doing it for my family. They're going to say, I need to be the best. Why do I need to be the best? Whatever it is. There's enough of a reason that can say, this has to come second for now. But only by bringing that into the conscious, being aware of it and being able to talk about it with somebody, people who are close enough but not too close, being able to talk about it and bounce that off them enables them to reconcile that and to find that happy medium.
With a family business, think of a later generation. How do they reconcile that they had this founder, the Steve Jobs, if you will, and these founders who did have these negative vices, but they built this empire? So what is final words of wisdom for the family businesses that might be dealing with that kind of legacy and reconciling it and moving on?
Part of growing up is starting to see our parents as human beings, that they too had their blind spots, their deficiencies, their vices, and coming to terms with that. You can't keep holding these people on a pedestal. It means carefully crafting their legacy to be a comfortable blend of everything that they were. Not necessarily ripping it all open for everybody to see. Imagine the second gen and somebody says, oh, your mother was amazing. They're speaking in the particular context in which they know the mother, successful business person. And the child is saying, you don't know what my mother was really like when she got home. And that can be grating for the second gen because it puts them in internal conflict. They're hearing one message about their mother that they've come to terms with. And this person thinks, oh, they were the bee's knees. These days it only takes one adverse incident to completely destroy decades of somebody's successful life. That's the world we live in polarizing social media. But it's nonsense. We're human beings. We're not perfect. So let's just come to terms with that and accept that we're a complicated mix of good and bad.
Well, thank you so much for being with me, David. This is Kim Eddleston with familybusiness.org. And I know you brought some great insight for a very complex and even a bit of a taboo topic. Thank you, David.
Thanks so much for having me today, Kim. Really enjoyed our discussion.